Welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management, a weekly conversation with area leaders about how to persevere during uncertain times. Now here's your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, and welcome to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. Another great show here because it's part two of several parts that we're going to be putting together on leadership and entrepreneur. Over the course of the last 4 years, we have talked to leaders from around the country, from around the state, from around Ellis County. And we've talked about how they succeed and what they do. But the process about getting started is a whole different thing. And our guest actually in February was Chris Munch, who we talked about what he has done as an entrepreneur and a leader coming out of the education background. But all along, he's been a builder of things. And you can see that in his history of doing that. He and I have some of those same characteristics. It's fun to build, and it's fun to put things and tear them apart and put them back together and make this happen. He's won a lot of awards for that. I don't think I've won any awards for that, but I'm hosting the show, and he gets to be the guest. So, Chris, good to have you on the show today.
Hey, it's great to be back.
You know, we talked last time about really the general idea of if you want to start a business and what you want to do. So, if we want to recap that a little bit, what were your thoughts from our last visit and what we put together? And then the next steps that we need to take if we want to be an entrepreneur and a leader in some sort of field.
Well, I think when we look back, what we first talked about is everybody loves the idea of being an entrepreneur, that name, and there's so many definitions to the word entrepreneur. Some people think you start a lemonade stand and you're instantly an entrepreneur, and some people, it's taken me, I'm 61, and I don't know that I really figured out that I was even close to an entrepreneur till probably a couple, 3 years ago. I'm like, maybe I do fit some of these definitions, but it's like we talked about, being an entrepreneur is a lot of work. You eat, sleep, breathe, drink, talk. Your friends become, it's a whole network of people that gets you into a position where you can even think of becoming an entrepreneur.
So, Chris, you've now taken on initially it was Service Master. You've then built into a whole new name of things that really do more things than just what Service Master did. Finding a passion for doing something. Did you have a passion for doing this, or did you have just a passion for rebuilding a company? Because you got to have that passion. If you don't have that passion, you're not going to get up at 5 a.m. and head off to work and deal with all the issues you have to. You're just going to quit right away.
Yeah, I have redone and rebuilt, and I don't like the word flipped, but houses for my whole life. I mean, literally bought my first house, I think, when I was 17. So when it came to business, the business side of things, I've had many businesses, liquor stores, restaurants, and built all of those kind of from scratch and got them going. But I don't want to say that when we ventured into Service Master, when I decided to leave education, I needed something to do. I don't function well in the world without a lot going on. So when I saw this opportunity, to step into Service Master. And ironically, it's kind of crazy, I actually bought the Service Master franchise for Manhattan, Kansas, 15, 20 years ago, after my son died and I moved away. I actually ended up buying that franchise and actually did not follow through with it. I bought the franchise and then started thinking about it. I'm like, maybe this isn't my thing. And then you cycle through a few years, and here we come back to this opportunity to buy the local franchise of Service Master. And I had just left 10 years of being kind of told what to do at the university. And I just did not find myself in another position of being told what to do by a franchise company. So we took the leap of faith and booted the franchise out. We knew that if we wanted to build this the way we wanted to build it, we could not have somebody hanging over our heads and tell us what to do. Now, we were losing the brand and we were losing everything they brought to us, but I guess maybe ignorance helped help my wife and I make the decision that, you know what, I think we can do this on our own. And and the idea of flipping a business is something I've never done. And oh, it is a completely different animal than flipping a house, let me tell you, because you have all these factors of employees and just all the different facets of what you're doing. And you're right, we do so many different things compared to what the ServiceMaster franchise did. So it's all in, right? Like you are all in. It's you go to sleep thinking about water losses and you wake up thinking about fire losses. I mean, that is just part of it.
So let's talk about some of those challenges. And sometimes you get into something. You had some background on ServiceMaster because you went through the process of buying a franchise earlier. But somebody that wants to get started in a business, many times, and I don't care what business that is, there's the external side of, boy, I'd like to run a coffee shop, or boy, I'd like to put a convenience store in, or boy, I'd like to run a senior center. If you don't know what you don't know, that can get you into real trouble. And what are the resources out there? And frankly, you got to ask yourself that question. What don't you know about this? Because I just pulled up some statistics in Kansas. This is in Kansas. Only 42% of the businesses actually survive 5 years. If you start a new business today, only about 42% survive, which means 58% fail. And so, how do you prevent that from happening? Some of that is you got to find people who know or understand that business to help you get along that path to make that happen.
Yeah, there's such a difference between I'm going to start my own thing, and most things have already been started somewhere, right? You may think you have the best idea there is, but somebody's probably doing that same thing somewhere. And really, one of the things that I've learned is that there's a lot of ideas out there, right? We all have ideas, but how do you turn an idea into an opportunity? Because opportunities are where right? We in the end we got to make money. We have to be able to pay the bills, the rent, the employees. We have to make money, or why do it? But it's when you have an idea and when you want to transfer that into an opportunity, there's this gray area in between there, and that gray area is the research. You're right, it's trying to move from 42% of success or 58% of failure into the 42% of success. And man, I'm going to tell you something. We were deep into this, getting a new building, and I was struggling. I am not a QuickBooks books guy, right? I like to go build stuff. And one of the things that I started to realize was that I did not have a good handle on, really and truthfully, were we making money? Now, we were busy, but were we making money? And one of the gentlemen on my team, who is actually a banker, he says to me, you know, Chris, he goes, you can be bringing in $1 million a year and make 200,000 a year, and you can grow that to 3 million a year and still bring in 200,000 a year. Now you're doing all this extra work to make the same amount of money. And because what I do is I set on these conversations, these thoughts, is I started to realize there was a lot I didn't know, what I needed to know, but I didn't even know what the heck I needed to know. And what you do is you start asking questions, right? I mean, I'm telling you, I beat on more doors and knocked on more doors and called more people. And one person would say, well, that's not my cup of tea, but it leads you to another person. And you start to build this network of people that are going to poke holes in your bucket. I think maybe we even briefly talked about this in the first one. You're going to get cheerleaders, and you're going to get, the people that are going to poke holes in your idea. And you need all of them to help create that knowledge you need to move from the 58 percenter to a 42 percenter so you can survive. And I think the more work you do, the better off you are.
So what is it? What are, many people have a job already, so they got to, work around that until they get set up for whatever they want to do next. That's where the passion comes in, because you're doing this in the evening, you're doing this around family. So obviously there has to be family support to get all of this done as well. So when somebody's poking holes in your bucket, sometimes the natural instinct is to, I don't want to talk to that person. I'd rather go talk to Joe Sunshine over here and do that. But there's a lot to be learned by somebody saying, hey, have you talked about this? Have you done this? You may have an issue here. Those guys, those people who are out there, businesses that have failed, may have been maybe a better resource than those that are pumping sunshine into your world.
I tell you what, I've walked away from some conversations with some people, and my wife even went with me. Even when we were getting ready to buy this business, and I remember getting in that truck, and she's like, looked at me, she's like, "Wow, that guy is like, he was poking holes and punching, and like he just like does not think this is a good idea." And I'm like, that's really his job, and that's why we're here, is because that comes back to a business plan. Bankers want you to write a business plan because they want you to go through all of those questions and really start digging in and answering. You can write a business plan, and there's no way it's going to tell you whether you're going to be a 42% or a 58%. But the reality is it makes you dig in, right? You are exactly right. So many people are out, they've got a job, and they're thinking of themselves, I could do something. I don't want to necessarily say I could do something better, but I want to do something different. I've got this passion. I got this inner drive to be on my own. I want to do my own thing. I want those headaches. And the reality is the more holes you get punched in your bucket, and the more you dig in, and the more you question yourself and your drive, because if you think a negative Nancy is going to punch holes in your bucket, it's going to be tough. Wait till you really open the door and you start your business. Customers, employees, my goodness, your own self-doubt. I've punched more holes in my own buckets, and you get a good night's rest, or I don't even know what a good night's rest is anymore. But if you get some rest, you wake up the next morning and you're refreshed, and you jump right back in, and it's because you don't know how not to jump right back in.
Well, that takes a hard work that goes behind it. We talked about it last time. So, part of the whole thing about entrepreneurship is just making sure you get started so you don't end up being one of those that does not succeed. I think most people want to do something for more than 5 years. They want to build it up. Maybe they want to sell it, but you're not going to sell an unsuccessful business at the end of 4.5 years. So the goal is to build something up. Maybe you want to sell it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to just keep giving it. Maybe you want to give it to your kids. Maybe you want to do something different with it, but it has to be successful. It has to have a margin to make that happen.
Yeah. Succession planning, one of the things that I would do if I was thinking,
and this is before you even start, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, this is before you start. Like, what are you going to do with it? Right. Because I'll tell you what, I can start naming off businesses where businesses started and they thought, you know what, my kids are going to take this over someday, and the kids are long gone, right? They have moved on. They're like,
and they don't want to come back and do this.
No,
just because dad was successful at it, or mom,
yeah.
I don't care what gender it is.
Yep.
They don't want to come back and do it. They're in someplace else on their own.
Yep. Path. Have their own interests, have their own thing. And so, you start out and you're thinking to yourself, because there's business after business after business. And what happens is there's business owners out there right now, I guarantee you, in Ellis County and Northwest Kansas, draw a 1 mile radius around your location. I guarantee you there's 10 people in that circle of people that are already doing something, that are thinking in their mind, I'm getting close to getting out of here, and I don't know how to get out of this. And so that's another thing that you research, right? This is what I want to do. This is what I'm thinking about doing. And gosh, this business over here is similar to it. Have you ever thought about you do that research just because you may be the succession plan to that person that's already out there, that's been grinding and learning and can teach you so much of what's going on and lead you into an opportunity for both of you, right? The opportunity is you get to step in where they were. It's literally what I'm doing right now. Corey and Pam Munch had Service Master. Their kids moved away. What are we going to do? Well, my wife and I step in. Corey sticks around. Corey and Pam stuck around and helped us kind of make that transition. And after 2 years, Corey, he steps out, very part-time, but he's always there to answer phone calls because he's got 25, 30 years of experience in this. So why wouldn't I be calling him? But that is part of that gray area, right? That I got this idea and I want to turn it into an opportunity. And what's that work in between? Now, the downside to that is, and I guess I shouldn't call it a downside, but there's a lot of people that just get stuck in the gray area, right? Gosh, I had that idea, I had that, and they just can't take that step to independence and doing their own thing. And maybe that's better than ended up in the 58%. But it's a leap of faith, Gary. I'm telling you, when you make that decision to go on your own, you tell me somebody that if it's easy and cushy, they really need to I really need to sit down and talk to them and figure out how that works.
You know, I've always, when you walk into a business that has that success, whether it be a franchise that has moved into the area and you say, boy, they're really good at what they do. You think about how did they get there? They started somewhere in that. Here's an idea on how we're going to build a widget better or sell something better or cook a widget better to do that. And so, but they also had the ability to go through challenges. And if you look back the last 5 years, COVID hit. You know, what a tough time to start a new business when you have COVID out there. So hang on with me, Chris. I want to talk about money because the last thing you want to do and the first thing you consider is making sure you have enough money. Let's talk about that when I come back. We're on Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Time. Our guest is Chris Munch. We're talking about entrepreneurship and leadership. Back with more after this.
Since 1776, the United States of America continues to stand tall. It's been tested before, many times. Through grit and the ability to move forward, we create better tomorrows. We help our clients live their best lives to and through retirement. We make it easier. Thank you, Kansas. Worth Wealth Management, enhancing lives and strengthening families.
Welcome back to Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times. Our sponsor is Worth Wealth Management, where you can live with confidence. And our guest today, it's the world famous Chris Munch. And Chris is not only rebuilt homes, he's built places that he likes to live in, then he sells them, then he moves on, and he's been an instructor, an award-winning instructor at Fort Hays State University. And Chris, it's a pleasure to have you on our program. We talked about some of those things, and it almost sounds like we're trying to talk people out of being an entrepreneur. That's not the case at all. But the idea is that you don't want to be one of those 58%ers that go out of business after 5 years. Again, some statistics show, and this can vary, but 42% of the businesses survive 5 years in the state of Kansas. So how do you avoid that being one that is going to go out of business? The number one thing that people talk about is running out of money. What do you do to solve that issue? Unless you have a rich uncle that's going to keep pumping money. And at some point, even a rich uncle's going, I'm not going to keep pumping money into this idea, Gary. You need to go out and find a bank. And if it's not successful, if the business isn't viable, they cut it off. And pretty soon you just sell what you have and walk away. But how did you go about the money issue? Because in many cases, a good bank, a good financer, a good money or provider of money and resources will ask you enough questions that you start questioning yourself.
Yeah, we have some really nice sweatshirts here, Restore and Clean, and
I don't have one, by the way.
I need to get you. I'll get you a nice one, because this one that I'm wearing is an old one. It was actually probably one that somebody wore for a while, ended up leaving the company, and then gave it back to us. And I chuckled with my wife the other day. I'm like, we're both wearing old sweatshirts, and our employees are wearing all the new stuff. And I think the best way to tie money to a business is this: is while I was doing construction work, working on houses, I would have my tool bag with my tools was always in that house. And when I would go there to work, my tools would be in the attic, laying in the basement. My bag would always be empty, and my tools would be scattered. They'd be buried in the insulation. They'd forget them in the wall. They'd leave them outside. Ownership. The day came when I said, I gathered what tools I could find, and I put them in that bag, and I took them out of there. And I said, if you want to work, you need to get your own tools. And it's crazy how they didn't lose their own tools, and then my bag always stayed full because they were my tools and everybody else had their tools. I think that is a direct relationship to getting into business for yourself, right? If you have that uncle that is just throwing the cash out there, that is just too easy. And you have every reason then to go to the lake, to go to the July 4th celebration, to go to bed early, to sleep in late, right? Because you don't have both your feet to the fire. And I do believe that a good banker will know that in the first 30 seconds of talking to you. I have borrowed money from people. I had a banker say, Chris, you can't come in here with torn jeans and an idea written on a napkin. But because I know your work ethic, I would probably give you money. And it's a passion thing, Gary. You know that if the money, you have to struggle. And if you are not struggling, you are not efficient. You are not looking what you're doing. And to go out and get money to start a business, people think they need, and sometimes you do need hundreds of thousands of dollars to get started, right? Because your idea is so big. But, I always warned my students when I taught at Fort Hays, if you go out on your own as a construction guy, listen, you don't need a big F-250 truck and big enclosed trailers and skid steers. And, what you need is just a little toolbox and a set of electric tools, a couple sawhorses, and you can get started, right? Build from the little and build up to where you're going. And I think that's such a critical thing is to really look at your idea and say, gosh, this is really where I want to go, but I could start here with this, right? I don't know what the statistic could be, but it'd be interesting to see how many people are working for somebody else and they want to take that step on their own, and they're afraid to take that step. And they think they gotta take this giant leap, right? It has taken me 40 years of doing what I'm doing to get where I am. But so often people just want to make that leap in 4 days.
I was on a call yesterday with a company. They'd actually gone through near failure 2 times. And now they're on the 3rd iteration and have formed a unique partnership. And they're probably in the best place they've been in the last 5 years. But it took that sort of refocus and rebuilding to do that. Having somebody you can go to as a resource to do that makes that happen. Same way with your business or our business. You got to have the people in place that will help you get where you need to be. And that could be a good topic for next time when we get together, building your success team that you have. Now you have your idea, you've done your research, but building that success team, that's something for maybe if you're out there listening, you want us to talk about specific about that, who should be on that success team. I know you've built one around what you do. some family, some people outside, but you got to have that, because otherwise you're in your own little tunnel and all you see is maybe the light that you see. Nobody else sees it. And you've got to figure your way out. But that's so important to have your own team, and having somebody with the ability to help with financing long-term makes a difference.
Yeah. The perspective, you sit down and start thinking about, you have a perspective and you have this emotion, right? If you have an idea and you're going to start putting this work into turning it into an opportunity, you're emotional about it, right? The worst house for me to buy is one that I don't have somebody else coming to look at. I need somebody else's eyes on it besides mine, because I'm already working on it, and I gotta have it. And the same thing happens in business. When you get this idea and you start doing that work, that in that gray area to turn it into that opportunity, you start to you're right, man. You start to focus down a road where, gosh, you think about this business that you were talking to yesterday, and they're on their third look at this business. You will, I don't know if you will ever start out with an idea and it's going to, the actual opportunity is going to be what you really thought it was going to be. It's because of the research, because of looking, because of talking, because of finding people that are going to poke holes in your bucket. What about this? Or what about this? And what about this? And your customer basis, right? Who's gonna participate? Who's gonna give you their funds to pay the bank back? I would never want to go into a bank with an idea and have them help me turn it into an opportunity, because they're looking at it from the bank side, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a business and they have got to get their money back. So what's the least risk? And we know the risk is huge to take that leap. And you are right. We're not here to talk people out of going into business, because everything we look at was somebody's idea, and they took that risk to do it. But yeah, building a team, oh man, who knew I had a team until I knew I had a team?
And that's fun. I mean, that is great when you have a team of people that are getting something done and they head out in the morning and you accomplish something, or you turn something around, or you build something. Boy, the satisfaction of getting that done is worth it all. And let's talk about building that team on our next talk, Chris.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Thanks for joining me today. I know I take time out of your schedule and you have other things. I know we've had some just wonderful weather, then that always creates opportunity for you guys. So thanks for taking time out. And if you're out there listening and you have some thoughts about what we've talked about today, don't hesitate to reach out to either Chris or myself. I think you know how to get a hold of us, but you can do that. I'm at gary.shorman@eaglemedia.com. And Chris, you're at?
KGMunch, MUNSCH @gmail.com.
All right. You can find either one of us. Look forward to talking to you at the end of April. And we're going to talk about building that team for a successful start of a new business and entrepreneurship and leadership. So join us then. We look forward to hearing from you. And Chris, have a great day. Be safe out there. And we'll talk to you here in about 30 days.
Go make a difference.
That's the point. Hey, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for listening. Our program is brought to you by Worth Wealth Management, where you can live with confidence. I'm Gary Shorman.
Thanks for joining us for Forward Ever, Leading in Challenging Times, presented by Worth Wealth Management. Join us right here next week for another episode with host Gary Shorman. Until then, remember to move forward ever, backward never.